additional information about standardization and best practices. Matt, if you want to go ahead and take it away, I will stop sharing here.
Sure. Let me know when you can see my screen, please.
Looks good.
Great. Well, thanks for joining today, everybody. Looking forward to kind of educating you here a little bit on some of the governance and standardization tools that Microsoft kind of offers out of the box as some add-on solutions. So let's go ahead and get started here. A little bit about me before we start. Personally, married with a couple kids. My wife is also involved in the technology industry. She's a human capital, or she's in the human capital department over at Concurrency, a Wisconsin-based company. I've got a couple kids. Cade is 5. He's our oldest and started kindergarten this year at a Spanish immersion school. So lots of fun changes over the last few weeks. It's been interesting. And then we've got a young daughter named Brennan, who will be 2 in January. So she's kicking around the house, running around, causing lots of issues. She's a lot messier of a 2-year-old than Cade was. So that's been fun to see. And she's really starting to put a lot of words together right now. We've got a dog as well. So 2 kids and a dog, just the ideal American family, I guess. Dog's name is Gizmo. She's kind of a senior. She's getting up there in age, almost 10 years old, little Jack Russell Terrier. That's just a little love bug. So, I'm in the Southwest metro area, the Twin Cities. It's where I live, that little town called Newport. I'm just south of there, actually. So kind of a tie-in with James. And as far as hobbies, I'm a big puck head, so I love the Wild. Really hoping that we get a Kirill Kaprizov signing here in the next couple of weeks here before the season actually kicks off. And very happy to brag about my fantasy football performance from week 1. Scored over 190 points. I'm sure I'll never touch that number again this year. Me professionally, started in the Dynamics CRM channel with Power Objects in 2013. Worked on all kinds of different projects along the way in the last 9 years or whatever it's been. So anything from single user all the way up to massive enterprise, 3,000 user enterprise implementations in the areas of sales and service. A lot of different XRM custom business process implementations, those types of things, and really been focusing in on the Power Platform over the last 3 years as it's kind of grown and the feature set has been added to. So thought it'd be worthwhile to cover a little bit of Boyer as well here on the call today, and just a little bit about the company. So Boyer was established in the late 90s as an ERP implementer, and our Power Platform practice was established fairly young here, late last year, October of 2020. So the whole company is very SMB and SMC focused, so small to medium-sized customers. We're not really playing in that enterprise space. We find that it's a lot easier to deliver value to customers where we can, get in touch and work in those smaller teams. So as far as verticals for expertise, Boyer as a whole has manufacturing and nonprofit. We've got a very close relationship that we've struck up with the Microsoft TSI team, their Tech for Social Impact team, and have been doing a lot on the Power Platform side of things with the Nonprofit Accelerator. If you've heard of that, they've got a nice app for fundraising and engagement, but a lot of really good, solid pieces to a data model that kind of helps to represent and manage a lot of common business processes for nonprofits and associations, that kind of a thing. So that's a little bit about me. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the content that we're going to cover today. So standardization here for a better user experience is kind of the theme of everything. And I think one of the side effects of this, or one of the other things that the COE itself is focused on, is really giving admins the power to do a lot more with a lot less time. So the 3 big areas I wanted to touch on today are the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So we'll hop in, take a peek at that. Then we'll kind of, along with that starter kit, which you'll see on in the next couple slides here, there's some other spokes. It's kind of a hub and spoke type of a solution here. So we'll dive into some of the other points in that, like the Canvas app theming tool, and then take a look at an architecture review tool that's pretty neat. Just real quick here, you're going to see here with this, everything today that you see is built on the Power Platform for the Power Platform. So I had to get a good GIF in here that kind of shows everything kind of referencing itself. So kind of neat stuff here. In the starter kit, what you'll see here on the bottom right of the slide there is kind of the high level structure of this, right? So we have the COE starter kit, and then around that, there's a bunch of different stuff for governance, innovation backlogs, some things that you can do to nurture makers in the in your enterprise, and then also some of the theming stuff there. So what the starter kit is here, the core components of it provide you with an admin view, which is basically a model-driven app. That's a central view for all of your Power Platform components across the whole environment. Included with that, there's some Power BI stuff that we'll take a look at, and some different Canvas apps that really kind of help to evangelize the Power Platform throughout the organization. The big key benefits, like I said, on the admin side of things, I think that this does a lot to help eliminate some repeatable tasks and solve some of the risks that the Power Platform, with its kind of wide open and available to everyone strategy can present to IT teams. So we'll kind of cover that. Like I said, there, tenant wide, you get visibility across all of your Dataverse orgs with this thing. And then there's some really cool novel approaches to reinforcing best practices that we'll take a look at here. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and fire up my demo. So you'll see we'll do a lot of screen swapping here between the slide deck and the actual platform itself today. So this is the admin view here that's part or installed with the COE starter kit solution here. And you can kind of see the dashboard here with active environments kind of being the most central point of this. Kind of shows you a really good summary of the count of apps and flows that are deployed across the different environments here. You can see all the different environments across the bottom. Just a very standardized, dashboard that you'd see in any normal model-driven app. Within that, like I said, when you start this up, it installs a bunch of different flows and that kind of stuff. There's some configuration that you have to do to turn those on in the correct order, but it's going to go through, talk to the Microsoft tenant that you're a part of, and pull in a bunch of different information here. So you can see I'm in this environments tab here. And on this tab, it's showing me all of the different databases that are deployed for Dataverse. So we'll go ahead and just pop one of these open. And you can kind of see some of the information that's pulling in here. So you're seeing the unique identifier for the organization, the CDS URL. So if you need to actually navigate out to it, that's available here. And then as well as that, you're seeing on the right there, all the storage capacity things. So it does a lot of the same things that the admin center does, but I think I like it a little bit better because it's inside of a model-driven app. It's a little bit easier to navigate around. It's a little more performance. So on this auditing tab, there are some things here, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about this as we go through. This stuff ends up surfacing itself in some different apps along the way, but this is kind of just the fields that it's using to capture business impact and those different types of things there. So kind of neat stuff. And then on the resources side of things, you can kind of see here specifically all the different apps and flows that are configured within this environment. Like I said, there's a lot here. You can see there's 35 different flows in the environment. A lot of these are actually part of that COE starter kit that get installed. So I'm going to go ahead here and actually pop into one of the flows here so you can kind of see what's contained there. So when you come in, again, you can do some customization of this solution or some configuration of it for sure. One of the ideas that I kind of had as I was working through the demo prep here today was actually being able to use this flow ID string here, maybe put a custom button up in the top where we can actually launch the flow window and actually end up on that flow page. So you could come in, edit that if you needed to take a look at it, those types of things. You can see the state of the flow that's there. And then there's some more things with this archival stuff where we can say, yes, we want to exclude this thing from archival, even though it might meet some of the thresholds where we would do some some auto archiving of some things. The other big thing on this, again, you can see all this business impact stuff again, and it's kind of neat here. You get a really high level, overview. Of course, I picked a bad one here. Let me back out. Oops. All right, so I'll go in here, and then we should be able to see here in the action details, you can kind of see high level inside of that flow, all those different actions that are a part of it. There's not much behind this other than the name, but it can kind of give you a starting off point to understanding if something's broken, where it may be broken at, or something like that if you need to hop in quick. So similar screens here inside for the portals. The biggest thing I think that portal shows you here is just the URL, so you don't have to muck around with hopping through environments to try to find a particular portal that's of interest to you at the time. And then on the apps side of things, this is going to be all of your Canvas and model-driven apps that you've got deployed. Again, you can sort and filter things by the environment that's included. Those types of things. We'll just kind of hop into one of these. And this is going to, you're going to see here again, we've got descriptions, the type of app that it is, the different connections that are in use, and then there is a little bit more configuration here on this side of things where we can see business justification for why we're using the app. We can tell some other things too, like what the business impact of this thing is. If it fails, are we, SOL? We can define whether or not we've got mitigation plans for failures, those types of things. And then you can see here some things that allow this to show up in some other different apps as well. So that's kind of a really high level overview of what's included with the Administrator View app that they include here. Another way to kind of look at that same thing is with the Power BI template that's included with the solution files here. I'm just going to kind of hop in. We won't dive too deeply into any of this stuff, but a really nice app that's got a lot of different information in here. So you can come into this intro tab. There's lots on the left here, so probably easiest to just be able to navigate this through the report itself. Some of the things I wanted to touch on here that I thought were kind of interesting is, in an organization where you have a bunch of different environments deployed, this kind of can come and show you some things, give you some ideas on adoption and how things are working. So you can see here creation trend. I said we started back in October. You can see we've spun up 3 orgs there. And then in August here, we've got 5 of them created. And then I thought another thing that was pretty valuable with this is that this total environments down here, you can see, okay, we've got 4 sandbox orgs. We've got 3 of the Dataverse for Teams environments provisioned, that type of information. So pretty neat stuff there on the Power BI side of things.
Hey, Matt, we have a question that came in the chat.
Yes.
Tyler, he said, for the flow action detail, from what I saw, I assume that's using the system name of the action, not the user-defined name actually implemented in the flow. Okay.
Yep, correct. Yes. So I mentioned those business justifications and those kind of things. So I just wanted to hop in here real quick and kind of show you one of the Canvas apps that is included here. So you can see this is the Developer Compliance Center here. And this is just taking and surfacing data a little bit differently than what you would see in that model-driven app. Inside the Canvas app here, you can kind of see here, you've got your lights on the side to tell you how compliant this thing is. And then I can go ahead and pop this open, see everything that kind of equates to why that compliance status is where it is. So you can see that we've got an app description. This thing's been published in the last 60 days. And, there's support details for that app there. Some other cool stuff you can do here. You can click in and actually see the settings of the app. So this will take you back to the make portal for that particular app. If you need to tweak any of the settings for it, you can publish it right from here, or you could open the app, maybe email the users if you need to, send something to the users to communicate about a system down or something like that. So that's the Compliance Center piece of that app. And then the other one that I wanted to show here is kind of part of this first first section here is the Maker Command Center. So I thought this was kind of cool. I think this is one of those bespoke and novel ideas on how do you communicate with those makers that are in your environment, maybe not directly a part of your IT team. And you can see here a nice little feed that basically aggregates all of the blog posts. I know personally, I probably miss one of these every couple of weeks. So I'm going to make a good effort to try to use this app a little bit more to kind of stay on top of all the news that is Power Platform. And the other piece that they kind of integrate in here is everything from the Learn portal here. So you can kind of see that they've got things implemented. They've got, learning paths, different tags on this that kind of can help makers that are maybe working to kind of build their muscle here to come into this place and be able to find the resources that they need from the Microsoft point of view to do this. So again, thinking through configuration and customizing some of this stuff, I think a pretty low-hanging fruit would be to come in and introduce some kind of a filtering system on this to allow users to more easily find the exact information that they would need. Okay. Go back to the PowerPoint here and look here. So like I said, you've got this core component that installs as a solution, and then there's these governance and other solutions that you can install on top of that. So you did get to see there this top screenshot here. We just took a look at the Compliance Center for developers there. And there's a lot of other cool stuff that you can do with this governance stuff. So there is some things that when someone provisions a Dataverse for Teams, since that's kind of wide open, we can't necessarily prevent people from doing that all the time. But when that happens, there's a flow that can notify the person in Teams, say, hey, thank you for spinning this up. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you want this? Some built-in integration flows there to be able to talk to that person's manager if they choose to ignore that kind of a thing. And then that kind of all transitions into admins approving or rejecting that. If it's a rejected environment, there's some cleanup flows that happen on the backside. So here again, like repeatable task-wise on the administration side of the Power Platform, I think there's a lot to offer here with those flows. So they've got things that you can turn on and off flow-wise for those rejected environments. Also some flows built that will clean up environments that maybe someone requested and then they're still empty. So someone asks for an environment, you approve it. They don't put any flows in there. They don't make any apps, those types of things. Those things older than 90 days by default can go and be cleaned up. Anything that maybe hasn't been launched in the last 6 months, that might be another trigger there that works. And then there's also some email notification, hey, we want to delete this environment. Is that okay with you, kind of a thing? So you're not just going in and nuking stuff that people do have intents to use, maybe that just got delayed for some reason or another. So one thing on the team side of things, I just wanted to kind of touch on there too. It will delete the Dataverse environment, but it's not going to delete the actual team there. So just kind of something to keep in mind. Another big piece here on the governance side of things is this, the orphaned objects reassignment stuff. So I think this is one of those things that was a common problem very early on with the platform. Hey, we've got this great platform. Business users can become makers, at the drop of a hat with some pretty low effort. How do we actually make sure that when someone like that leaves, that the processes that they are implementing, maybe business critical processes, how do we make sure that those things don't break just because we shut that user off? So what you can see down there in the bottom right is a screen cap of a notification from Flow that's coming in through Teams to a manager for this gentleman named Mark, who's got a bunch of different flows that are all set up there. And you can see at the bottom here, there's some different options for, to allow that manager to take ownership of all the flows here, or maybe that manager may want to assign those out to a different business user to, take ownership of those. So they could do an assign all, and then you can see each button here that will give you the functionality to maybe divvy that up. Maybe you want to take some of those and assign that out to different coworkers, those types of things. That functionality is there as well. The compliance status, I think we just touched on that one, so we can buzz by that. And we'll move on to the next kind of spoke around that central COE starter kit hub. So on the nurture side of things, there's some pretty neat stuff that you can see here. Right in the center of the screen at the bottom, there is, Microsoft is very big on the training in a day. So getting users into the room for a 4 or 6 hour period, teaching them how to use Canvas apps or Flow in a day, those types of things. And, getting people in hands-on building something. So they've got some assets here that allow you to actually manage that stuff. So you can see in the middle there on the bottom, that's like the registration app. And then on the left side, you can kind of see a screenshot here of the admin view of that. So you can kind of see the events off to the left here. You can see who signed up for those. And then it allows you to go ahead and make changes to that event or email those attendees if you need to communicate with them before things. There is also a template catalog, which we'll touch on in a little bit here, that allows you to kind of go and use pre-built themes for different apps in the future. I'll pause there. Is there any other questions yet, Ashley?
No questions, but a lot of comments about how cool all of this is.
Yeah, it's some pretty neat stuff. The next piece that I wanted to touch on here is the innovation backlog. This solution is separate as well, and it's probably one of the more complex ones. They actually have a decent sized data model built out for this, and then some different apps. You're seeing the Canvas app for the innovation backlog on the screen here. And this is really a place to allow the business and IT to interact together and, pull ideas out for development, whether that be maybe that maker type development or, something that's more IT led, right? So there's lots of different things that this captures when you create one of these ideas. You'll see that add idea button up top here. When you do that, it goes through a series of different screens. It asks you what tools you're using for this particular business process, where the pain points are in that business process, who the affected teams are. Is it finance? Is it sales? So on and so forth. There's some pretty neat configuration where you can pick, or you can define the effort that's spent here. So you can kind of come in and say, every time that we do this, it takes us 15 minutes, and we do this 20 times a week, or each person on my team, there's 5 users and we each spend an hour doing this a week. And that kind of funnels down into what you see over here, this investment side of things, where it's costing the business $20,000 a month maybe to do this process. And we think that we can maybe improve on that, introduce an app to help streamline that process, or, put some flows in place to facilitate better communication, those types of things. One of the other neat things that you can do there is upload the process mining outputs from that new flow tool that they added, or Visio files there. So if you've got, people in the business that have got stuff already well documented, easy way to come in here, be able to see that along with the rest of that idea from them. So a really nice way to, like I said, grab stuff from the business. People can come in here, look at things that are existing in the back or in the app itself, and then they can like it too if they also agree that this is a big pain in the butt for them, that kind of a thing. All right, so I'm going to hop over and we'll do a couple more demos here to kind of close things out, and then I'll open up for questions. So the first tool that I'm going to demo here in this section is going to be the theming tools. There's 2 different apps for this. There's the theme editor tool, and then there's the theme gallery. So we'll go ahead, we'll create a new theme here, and you can kind of see what this process looks like. It's pretty well straightforward. Okay, so we'll go ahead and see here we've got the new theme. So we'll just call this UG Prezi. And then you can kind of come in. The nice thing about this is you're seeing stuff in real time as things change, right? So let's go ahead and make this button red. And you can do different stuff like, okay, maybe I want the text to be blue for some reason. I don't know why you would do that, but you know, you can change that. It's going to change off on the right side of the screen. You can set default values for like the radius on this. So if we watch the button up top here, I can say the radius volume or value there is 10. So you can see now we've got rounded buttons and that kind of stuff. All this stuff to say, you know, change this. Let's do Times New Roman here. Change that so you can kind of see how things go there, right? All this to say, get things into a spot where you want it to be at, and then people can use this thing in the future. There's also the opportunity here, if it's a company, you can upload a picture asset. So maybe you want to include the company logo or something like that. I'll wait for this to go here. So we name it, we publish it, and then we would save that theme. Looks like this conked out. So once we do that, there's a little bit more work in the background of, okay, we got to go generate some Canvas apps. We generate the MS app file for a Canvas app and a phone app, and then we'll see that in just a moment here in this next one. So I'm going to come into this theme gallery, very similar. You can kind of see all the colors here that you've chosen for the different elements, that kind of a thing. And then I can hop in and view this again, showing you the same thing that we saw in the last screen, but this is, you know, from that maker point of view so that they're picking the right theme for the thing. And then down at the bottom, like I said, we upload an app file, and then there's some things that go on in the background that change that app file a little bit to put things in place, which we'll see in just a moment. But as a maker, when I'm ready to use that, I can come in, just download the template itself, and then put it into the app. So putting it into the app, I go download the file, I click open, I choose browse here, and then I drop that into the app. Once it's dropped in, you can see here, we've got our background. That's the correct color. I didn't do anything to this button. Here's proof for you. I'll come in, just put a new button on, and you can kind of see, okay, you know, if you've worked in Canvas apps before, you'd notice that normally this button would be blue if we just added it, but you can see here that the fill on the button is this background color. So essentially what happens there is there's a little transformation in the background, and in that app, that MS app file, it's just adding a bunch of different variables and then populating the values of all those, and then defining what happens when I drop one of those buttons onto the screen. So you can see a bunch of different variables here that are made available because of that theming. Okay. And the last piece that I wanted to cover today is on the architecture review tool. This is, I think, the only thing that's not technically part of the COE starter kit or of the COE itself. This was developed by someone at Microsoft in the Power Platform team that was doing a lot of different solution reviews. It's a pretty cool solution. The guy said that as they developed this, they were doing architecture reviews for Canvas apps, and they were taking roughly 4 to 6 hours to complete the full architecture review. And once they implemented this, it was taking them under an hour to kind of go through things. So you can see if you're doing a lot of that, if you're looking at a lot of different Power apps, then you obviously gain quite a bit of value from that. So what we're basically going to do here to start this process off is come in, we'll do a new review here, and we'll just go ahead and put a name in for the review itself. And then there's this kind of concept here. It doesn't tie in necessarily to the Dataverse accounts section here, but you can see where it says contact or customer or team. So you can go ahead, choose which team. You can add new ones there. Oops, clicked in the wrong spot there. You can add trace files in here if you're, if you know that there's a specific error that you need to address, that kind of a thing. You can add those. And then as far as the app, we're going to be able to see here, we can pick any of the apps that are present in the COE, or we can upload an MS app file. So for this one, I'm just going to choose the actual review tool itself, and then I'll go ahead and submit that. Okay, so you can see that this one's processing now. We'll go ahead and pop in and have a look here. So the first tab I actually want to start on is the statistics tab here. Kind of a neat little view, and I think thinking through the automation side of things and how you can customize and configure things if you're in an organization that uses DevOps pipelines, there's flows that run in the backgrounds to do this. So I think you could use this there to help you to determine whether or not you can actually deploy something into a production environment, or, you know, maybe you deploy something into your UAT and testing environment and run this. And then before it goes into production, we've got to get this grade up, obviously. So you can kind of see here, there's a score, a grade, and then it shows the patterns that are passed or failed. And then down here, you're going to see, based on the category of the different rules that exist there, you know, what are the bad categories here? And then severity wise, are they really that important, or are they, you know, very low priority? So really good little landing dashboard that you can kind of see all of that information in. We'll head back up to the reviews tab here. And the first thing I kind of want to point out here, like I said, there's a bunch of different rules and patterns. So we'll come up and we'll look at the patterns in just a moment. But on the left side of the screen, you can kind of see here these red and green, so pass and fail. And then you've got these other things like that are grayed out like this. Those are going to be manual. So we can come in then and set this up to say, okay, this thing passed. For other things that you see here, we'll just take a look at like this code readability here. So this is a really nice example of what it says here. So there's a review pattern, and it says that we need to avoid formulas that are long and hard to read. So don't use nested if else, and ors, those types of things. And then in this particular case, the reason that this was triggered, you can see here, 1,875 characters long without a comment. I can click this view details here and give it a moment to load up. And it's actually pulling in the code from that particular element that it found the error with. So you can kind of see here what's going on. In this case, hey, it's the theming stuff that we're doing actually, and it doesn't like that. But I can come in and override that. Let's say I want to just change this to say, okay, or we could just say something like standard implementation of theme, something like that, and save this here. So now we've changed the comment on it, and I'm actually going to just adjust that and say, now that's a pass. So some kind of neat functionality there. You can do that same thing with this maintainability stuff. You know, anything that's grayed out here, you kind of monitor that the same way. There's some filtering going on here. And I wanted to show the review pattern stuff here. And one of the reasons I wanted to come in here, we're going to come and look at this code review readability. So this kind of allows you to configure things, right? So you can see we have the short name for something. You can see the full description that we saw on the left side of the screen out there. And then we've got our categorization of that, whether it's high, low, or medium. And then we can choose the pattern type on it. The big things that you can do here are adjust the weight on this. So maybe I want all of my code to be super readable. I could give this a weight of 10, and then that's going to allow that to fail when we miss this more often. And then they don't have this working quite yet, but they've got the concept here where we can link out to resources, which I think is pretty cool. So you can just click on the resource itself, and then it drops you into a spot that shows you how to possibly solve the issue. So kind of neat stuff there. What else do we want to look at here?
Hey, Matt, there was a question in the chat from Eli, but I think you answered it right after he asked it. He was asking if there's only a manual override for the results, or can we set a custom threshold? And I think you showed the customization of it there. Does that answer your question, Eli? Yep. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, cool. So then a couple of different things, or a couple other things you can see here. These are not read-only. They probably should be, because this doesn't actually do anything if you change them. But in this app overview, you can kind of come in and see high level which app settings are in use here. It shows you all the high level info on the screen. So here's the create pattern screen. There's 127 controls on it. And the app overall, you can see it uses 4 different custom images. So neat stuff there. And then the other thing I wanted to show here is actually the code viewer. So this is kind of neat. If you're having issues, specific issues, or if a user's having specific issues, and you think that it has to do with one particular thing, you can see I have the word collect here. If I unfilter, you're going to notice, okay, so this is all the code in every single element in the app. And then I can come in, and if you think that the issues with the collection, you could come in and type in collect. And then you're going to see here, okay, so here's the screen that it's on. This is the control that, it's placed on. And then here's whatever property that thing is in. So it allows you to kind of narrow down and pinpoint exactly where you should be looking in the app without actually having to, click around into every single element that's on a screen, which, some of these screens, the one had 127 controls on it. So pretty neat stuff there. The only other thing that I wanted to cover on this side of things, we'll just hop back into this review pane here. And you can see up top here, there is send a report button. So if I click this, it'll generate this thing out into an email for me. I think this could be pretty neat. Like I said, you could probably leverage something where if you're using DevOps pipelines, it's posting into a Teams channel with all the performance things that fail, let's say. Or you can just use this out of the box where you click the thing and I've got a copy of, oh, of course. All right, let's see here. Just pop in here and show you the view of what that email looks like as well. Not too different. Okay, come on. Yeah, so you can see here in the email, here's the name of the report that I gave it last night when I ran this through, and then you can kind of see here's all the different statuses and fails, that kind of stuff in there. So just another way of being able to communicate this out, especially if you're in an environment where there's lots of different apps. Some automation behind this is probably going to be pretty important, I would say. So, and that kind of brings me to the end. So I'll go ahead and open up for any questions that you all might have.
No questions so far in the chat. I just want to say that was really cool. I've, read articles and blog posts about that COE, but I've never actually looked into it, and actually just seeing you navigate around it and stuff definitely lit a fire under me, and I'm going to go check that out now. That was really cool.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to use it in quite a while, so I wanted to, that's part of the reason I did this, was semi-selfishly, so that I could get in and refamiliarize myself with everything, and there's a lot of really good functionality there, that's for sure. So
no, we really appreciate you taking the time to show us all that. Tyler asked in the chat, Tyler Hoffman, does this COE get into any detail around what is actually taking up space, more so than like the admin center?
no, I think it's higher level than that. We can go, actually I can look just to make sure. Okay, I have this open here, hold on. Okay, so in environments here. Yeah, it's just a high level, just like a name tag, essentially. So.
Gotcha. Could you review what was under that resources tab?
For the environments?
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so in here, what you see is all of your apps and flows. And then as you go down the page, you can tell, okay, we have one a management API custom connector in there. And then you can see flows and chatbots too. So.
Cool, thanks. All right, well, it looks like we're good on that. Thanks again, Matt, very much for showing all of that. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
One last question, Matt. What was it under the eject button?
That was the, what did I have under there? I think it's just the make portal. So
Okay.
in case I had to navigate around any apps that didn't load right or something.
All right. So with that, has anyone built any of their own Canvas apps that they'd want to kind of show or demonstrate if they're able to? Or any other questions, any other topics, either what we've already talked about or stuff we haven't talked about, kind of open it up to the group here.
I guess a big question here I have for people, are people building Canvas apps, or is it not something that you have gotten into just yet? Or do you have a plan to?
I've been thinking of a plan too. We have a really old Rolodex system at HuffCore that we used sort of as a replacement for like distribution lists in the Outlook address book. And it's running, I mean, the screens for it, the window modals look like they're from Windows 95.